Hello, good morning everyone. Welcome, thank you for attending this webinar on our payroll for Dynamics Business Central. My name is Eileen Primrose. I am Head of Dynamics Sales here at KIC, and I'm joined for this session by Linda Finlay, who's one of our Business Central payroll consultants. If you move on to the next slide, Linda. Okay, so for this session, it's due to last around 30 to 45 minutes, and we'll be providing an overview demonstration of the payroll, and included in the time that we have is time for questions. So if you do have any questions, please pop them in the question box anytime during the demonstration, and we'll go over these questions at the end of the demonstration. So as you can see here on this slide, our payroll app has been created as an extension-based app, which means it's just part of Business Central and it's accessed directly within Business Central via a customised payroll role centre, meaning there's no need for a separate payroll system, and also meaning it automates your financial postings for each of your payroll runs. Our payroll is also listed in Microsoft's App Source Store, which is Microsoft's marketplace for downloading apps for Business Central, and this means that it's been certified according to specific criteria Microsoft enforce and their particular certification policies. Reassuringly, the payroll is also HMRC accredited, and this provides all the typical payroll functions that you can see listed here, including RTI submissions to HMRC. And one last point from me before I hand over to Linda for the demonstration is the payroll was available for both on-premise and SaaS versions of Business Central. So for on-premise from Business Central 14 onwards, and your account manager would be able to help anyone with the version that you're on and how you can obtain the payroll that we have. So really, that's just sort of an introduction from myself. I will now hand over to Linda, who will walk you over the demonstration of the payroll. Thanks, Linda.
Thanks, Eileen. Thank you. Okay, let's get into the actual payroll. So this is our role page for the KIC payroll. I'll just go over a few features. Now, firstly, if we look at the role, if it comes up. Okay, we have created two new roles. One is the payroll admin and one is the payroll user. The payroll user has access to most functions, except they cannot actually send an EPS and they cannot access the groups within the payroll. So that gives an added security that only certain people who are deemed administrators by a company will have access to these key functions. And you'll see that working as we go through. Now, the payroll admin, if someone has access to that role, they will have access to the payroll. If they do not have access to that role, they will not be able to see any functions of the payroll. Okay. Another thing I'd like to point out, under administration is where you're actually setting up your payroll. So I'm not going to go through all these features, but basically this is where you would set up your tax years, your pay elements, your pension schemes, etc. Within here, we have what we are calling payroll groups. Now within payroll groups, you can have as many payroll groups as you wish. You can have, for instance, you could have 2 monthly groups, one for normal monthly people and one for directors, and have the directors separate from the monthly and also have additional security features on them. So within, if we look at the weekly and we go to related and users, you will see the people who have access just to the weekly. Okay, so basically if your name is not on here, you will be able to see the static information on the employee card, such as names, addresses, etc. But you won't be able to see any payroll information. So that's another additional feature that you can control who actually sees not only the payroll, but who sees the groups within the payroll. Okay, and we'll see that in action when I go through. Another feature I want to point out under here is pay summary names. Now in here is where you can create your own reports. We do have some static reports under reports and documentation. reports and documents, sorry, but you can create your own reports for your own period ends. For instance, if I look at this period summary, I can go in and you can see I can create whatever reports I wish. I can look at it from a current period, or I can look at it from a year-to-date period. So I have two reports, one for this period and one for today's summary. Again, I'll show you that working when we go through the payroll, but this is quite a good feature that you can set up reports to suit your own requirements. Okay, that's all I'm going to go through about on the administration at the moment. Let's get straight into looking at the payroll. So what we've tried to do is we've tried to do an action menu where you can easily flow, your users can easily flow through the payroll process. Okay, just go on step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 onwards. The first thing would be employees. So when you come and you do your a new payroll, the first thing you want to do is you want to get into employees and you want to add new employees. You want to maybe change pay rates. You may want to change tax codes or addresses, emails, etc. So any changes you would have before you start running your payroll, you would come into employees. So this is a wee bit slow. So within employees, it's going to show me by default all my employees, but I can have a view that will show me the weekly, the 4-weekly, the fortnightly. Okay, excuse me. Just quickly, now that I'm in all view, if I go into the FO1 now, I don't have access to the group fortnightly. So you can see here, I'm not seeing any information on this employee. I'm not seeing any payroll information further down. And there is a tab called PFD Payroll up here that I'm not seeing because I don't have access to fortnight. If I quickly change him to monthly, you can see immediately that information is coming through and all the additional payroll information is coming through and the PFD Payroll tab. So that is because I have full access to monthly. It's giving me access to that now. So you can see the security features in there. But we're going to have a wee look at the weekly ones. Okay, so we have six employees in this weekly. If I quickly go in, I'll just show you the process of setting them up. So an employee card, everything for the employee is on the employee card. So under PFD Payroll is where for this one employee, you can put in all the statutory information, all the pension information and any attachment orders. You can also quickly view their history or any information about company vehicles or HMRC notifications. For instance, if I look at Rose Riley, I know that she has an attachment order, so I can go into attachment orders and have a look at the information in there and know that it's due to make a deduction for attachment orders. Also know that she has a maternity, so again, I can quickly go in here and look at her information for maternity. It's showing me how much she's already been paid, so she's had 6 weeks at higher and 12 weeks at the lower. Okay, so you can do that on the employee card. Coming down the card, I mean, most of it is just static information like addresses, etc., the date of birth, the day they started with you. We then get to the tabs, the PFD tabs. So this is the payroll part of it. In the PFD payroll is where you're going to put in your P45 details. You're going to decide whether they're getting a payslip through an email or for a print. If I change that to print, you'll see that the payslip password, etc., disappears. So there's fields that appear only if you make a certain choice. Within pay details, it will have all your tax code. If you are changing your tax code manually, this is where you would do it, and your tax NI. This is also where you would determine whether the employee is a director, and if so, you'll see there's additional fields appear, and whether or not they have a student or a postgraduate loan. And again, additional fields will appear if you make that choice, and that will appear when you do your payroll. Next tab is statutory leave. So this is their general working pattern and how the statutory leave is going to be worked. Is it going to be worked out over 5 days that they work or 3 days that they work, etc. The auto enrolment tab. So this is where you would actually record the auto enrolment. I will show you the auto enrolment calculation feature when we're doing the payroll, but this is where you see it on the employee card. And the main one is your PFD rates. Now, even though you have access, it's still shown closed automatically because they just don't want it to be appearing on the screen. So we open that up. So the PFD pay rates are quite important. Now, what what happens is when you run your payroll, it's going to look at this tab here and it's going to pull that into your payroll. It's going to assume that the figures you have on here is your static payroll information. So for monthly, it will be salary at maybe £2,000 every month. You don't want to keep typing that in every pay period. You want to put it in here and it'll pull it in automatically and save you time when you're processing. For weekly, it's slightly different because, excuse me, you may not work 39 hours, but if most of the time they do work 39 hours, you want to put that in there. You can change it on the fly when you're running your payroll. If they only work 37 hours, you can do that at the time, but you want to pull through the more normal hours that they work. If they have overtime, you can add overtime in here and you can put in a rate, but not hours, which means that when you're running your payroll, it's going to come through as the rate and you're going to put the hours on as you're running your payroll because you'll have that information in front of you. Okay, so basically for pay rates, you want to bring in everything you can to save you time when you're running your actual payroll. Okay, so that's basically the employee card. So once you've made all your changes before you start your payroll, you would come back out and you would go back to the action menu. Okay, now HMRC notifications, a lot of people get these manually, but you can download them automatically from the HMRC and our software does support this. I'm not connected to the HMRC, but I can show you basically the process. So you would come in here and you would run get notifications, and what will happen is it will download anything that's sitting there. So you need to sign up for this with the HMRC. It will download anything that's sitting there and show you what it has to apply to the employees. Okay, once you're happy with it, do action and apply update. Now this is going to go and update the relevant employees with the relevant information. So you can imagine it's going to stop any potential errors, taking it off a page and putting it into the record. So it's going to be all automatic. Okay, if the issue date is actually later than the current period, it will sit there until the payroll is in the relevant period, and then it will apply it when it hits that period. So it won't apply it in advance. Okay. The next step would then be to go into your payroll processing. So we've updated the employees, any tax codes, etc., and we're going into payroll processing. Okay, so in here, you're going to choose which group that you are running it for. It's going to immediately show me the next open period, which is week 13. And the first thing I want to do is prepare the payment details. So when I'm doing this, it's looking at every employee card in weekly and it's pulling through the pay rates that, as I mentioned, would come through. I then want to do a calculate. The calculate is going to look at all the information such as attachment orders, pensions, all your statutory information and bring that into your payroll. And it's also going to work out the tax and NI based on your pay. The final step would be the auto-enrolment assessment. Okay, so it's going to warn you, you need to make sure that you've run the prepare and the calculate because you want to make sure it's based on how much they're getting paid or some of the criteria is that. So you want to have that run. If we go in here, you can see it's got all my employees. It's then based on the auto-enrolment criteria, their age, their salary, etc. It's going to tell me who it thinks is eligible to be auto-enrolled, and it's going to suggest that I auto-enroll them, and it's going to suggest a pension scheme for them. If you have two, you can change it, but it's going to suggest the first one. Okay, it also will deal with re-enrollment. So if you are hitting your re-enrollment date and you have an eligible who is opted out, it will suggest that you re-enroll them and you can run that process. Okay, give me a second, my screen's just black. Okay, so if I'm happy with that and wanting to actually apply it, all I need to do is implement the suggestions. Okay, and it's asking me, do I want to update? Yes to that. Okay, so it's now went and it's applied the auto-enrolment to these employees. It's now wanting me to run another calculate because obviously it's now applying a pension and I need to recalculate to get that pension activated. Okay, so I'm going to run another calculate there. Okay, so that's basic setup of your payroll. Everything's in that needs to be in. Now you want to go in and you want to have a look at what it actually has created. So you navigate to the pay details. Depending on your own set circumstances, you may just pick out one or two of these, or you can look through them all to look at what the person's getting paid. So if I look at Rose Riley, you know, we looked and we've seen she had an attachment order and she had SMP, so they are coming through. Now, it's also brought through her time because her time is on her pay rate. Now, if she is just getting SMP, you may want to adjust the pay rate so that it's not coming through every period, and you're going to have to keep you're going to have to keep deleting it. So you can choose to delete that. However, if you operate a system where you top up the salary so that they're getting the total amount and take away the SMP, you can change it there to suit. So, which would be, yep, my apologies. I wish I was getting paid that amount. Okay, you can either do that, or you can, and it'll pay her the total amount she normally do, or you can delete the line and just add a new line called top up, or whatever you want to call it, and then add that figure in there. It really depends on how your company deals with the SMP and whether you pay just a statutory or you top it up. Okay, but you can see how you can manipulate what's on the pay card for this one period only. If I then run it next period, it's going to take what's on the pay card. Okay, and I can then calculate the pay for that one employee to look at the changes to national insurance and PAYE. Okay, so I'm filtering through these people. See, here's Andrew Adams, so there's his time coming through and there's his overtime. So I don't know how many hours, but I know I want the rate to come through. So in here, I can quite quickly just put in 10 hours and do a calculate and see how that's going to affect his PAYE and national insurance. Again, filter through again. So I have James Johnson. I can see that he has SSP and he also has a student loan. Okay, I'm not 100% sure what the details of that. So what I can easily do is navigate back to his card and have a wee look. So if I navigate back to his card, I can look at his sick pay or any other statutory pay. I can see here, there's his sick pay, and I can also look at his period of incapacity for work and see that these are linked. So he is due to be paid the 5 days. He doesn't have to serve the waiting days again. For the student loan, I can quickly go down and just have a wee look to see, oh yes, he's got a student loan, it's a plan too. Okay, and if I do decide to capture any information, I can look at his attachments and I can see on his starter declaration that he has ticked the box to say that he has a type 2 student loan. So if you save this information, it is easy to get back to bring it back up. Okay, and then I can go back. Once I've done that, I can go back into the pay details and continue on and just go through the rest and make sure that I'm happy with any information that's in there. Okay, once I'm happy that I've completely made all the changes that I need to in my payroll, I would do a final calculate pay just to make sure that I haven't missed anyone, I haven't miscalculating someone, and that's just for the group as a whole. Okay, sorry. Okay, once I'm happy with the payroll, the next step would be to run my pay slips. Okay, so on the pay slips, because I'm doing it within payroll processing, it's going to automatically populate the, excuse me, the details in here. I do have the option to send a comment, so if I want this to appear on my pay slips, I can enter a comment in there if it will allow me. I think it's frozen a little bit. Hold on a second. My apologies, my screen froze there. Let me just go back out there. Okay, so I can go into the pay slips. As I say, I can put a comment in here. It's not Merry Christmas, everyone. Okay, if I choose print here, now it's going to look at the employee cards. If I've set them up to email, it'll automatically email it to the employees. And if I've set them up to print, it'll automatically print to whichever printer I decide. For the moment, I'm just going to preview it. And you can see it's got pay slips here. So it's got all the relevant information, your year to date, the period information, and the message that I've just added in. Okay, you can easily click through all of these. Sorry, my mouse is, oh. Let me click that. My apologies for that. Okay, so that's us done our pay slips. Okay, the next step is to run any pay summary reports. These are the reports that were created under administration pay summary names. You can go into pay summaries and you can see here, I can filter down to see all the reports that I've created for my company. If I look at this period summary, I can change it to weekly. You can see here it's only showing me the groups that I have access to it. So I can't run reports for groups I don't have access to. And look at the current period. So the current period is week 13. Okay, and you can see it's pulled through my gross pay, my tax, everything that I've asked it to pull through, it's pulled it through. The good thing about this is I can quickly run the reports for all of them by just changing the summary name. You can see there the figures are changing quite quickly. So you can run the period end reports very, very quickly through this process. I can also go back previous years and run reports. I can run it for any groups I have access to and any periods that have already happened. So you can go in here and run it for any period at any point. Another good feature of this is I can export this immediately out to Excel by clicking the button here, and it's going to allow me to open it in Excel. Okay, opens in Excel and allows me all the Excel functionality if I want to add graphs, do any sort of sorting on it. Okay, and that can happen for anyone in the pay summary. This does appear quite often through the system, so it can be used when this appears. You can pull that information into Excel. Okay, at this stage, you may also want to run some of the static document reports that we have created. So there's payroll entries, general ledger extract, gender pay gap, etc. So that is completely up to you. These ones are static. You can change the criteria, but you can't change what the output is. But they may be part of additional parts of your payroll process. Okay, once you've actually completed that process, your payroll is ready to be closed. You've got your reports, you've reconciled them, your payroll's looking good, you want to close and update the period. Okay, come in here, you change it to the period you're working on, which is week 13, and we close and update the period. Yes to that. Okay, you see immediately it changes to week 14, so that's the current open period. What we want to do is change that back to 13. And when we do that, we have access to additional reports. So here you can create the journal. If you are linking it to NAV BC General Ledger, you can create the journal in here. You can either choose to post it automatically or create the journal and then check it and post it manually. If you are uploading a pension file, we can create a pension file to suit whoever your pension company is, and that can be exported from here. And also your BACS file. So your export payment file can be done in here. Again, we would create that to suit the bank that you're using, and that can be run there. Now, one thing is, I'd like to point out is that we choose to close and update the period before we do the BACS, and the main reason for that is when you're doing your payroll processing, if you've completed it and then at the last minute someone goes in and changes something, it's going to change all your figures. Your reports are going to be wrong if they haven't resent them. Your backs file maybe different from what you expected it to be, and it's not reconciling to what is on your reports, what you actually paid. So we want to have the pay file created after we close and update the period, so that if anyone does going to make changes, they're making it to the next period and not the current period. If you need it in the current period, there is an option to reopen the pay period to make the changes, but then it makes you realise you need to rerun all your reports, you need to reconcile them all again, and then you need to do your backs file. So that's why we've chosen to do it after we close and update the period. Okay, so with the next and final step would be to do your full payment submission. Now, a user does have access to the full payment submission in here, but they don't have access to the RTI on the action menu. So it means that they can still run the full payment submission, they just do it from within here once they've created all these other files. To do that, again, into full payment submission. Now, because you're actually doing it within Payroll, it's already populated, and it's a case of pressing OK and uploading it to the HMRC. If you then if something changes and you have to resubmit your FPS, it does allow you, it does support doing it for an individual employee, where you can choose the relevant employee and you can tick a correction and say there's a reasonable excuse that this employee is late, and then press OK. Okay, and the final part is your RTI submission. So basically in here, you still have the access to the full payment submission if you wish, but you also have access to the employer payment submission. And this is your EPS, you change tax month. It has all the relevant information you need on an EPS. And all you need to do is make any necessary changes and press OK to send that up. When you send it up, well, hopefully it's going to come back as a successful submission. I'm not connected to the HMRC, which is why mine's have all shown failed. But if you do happen to get a failure, you just need to click the ID and it will tell you where the error lies. And it also is quite readable. It's not in any sort of a technical language, but you can see here it's telling me my national insurance number is wrong. So I need to go make the changes and then resubmit the RTI. If there is anything you weren't sure of, then obviously you would just log a call with support. Okay, once the RTI submission is gone, that is you complete with your payroll and you're ready to start the next period. Okay, I hope that's enough information for you, and I'll go back to Aileen.
Thanks, Linda. That was a great overview of the payroll. Thanks for that. We have had a few questions come in, Linda. And I should let everyone else know as well, we have Doug Drysdale on the call, who is our payroll product manager. So I'm getting a bit of feedback, Linda.
Oh, do you need me to go?
Yeah, maybe if you just mute just now, and then I can read out the questions. Okay, so one of the questions, Linda, that we have is, does the system hold any HR personnel information?
Okay, yeah. Well, the HR functionality within our payroll is actually the standard NAV BC functionality. So there is a role under my settings. You can change to the HR role, which is just human resources. Yep, just give me a second. Okay, and under this user, you can see they have access to employees. Now, this is the same employee card as payroll uses. So the payroll users can still access some of the information under the employee. Okay, so if your payroll person is the same as your HR person, they don't have to change roles. The information's in there under the payroll access. But if you do specifically want one for an HR person, then they would log in as HR. They would have access to the employee card, where to record absence, various reports within HR, and the setup of how to set up these reports. But it is standard BC functionality.
Great, super. And another one here, Linda. What happens if I have downloaded my HMRC notifications and new ones come in whilst I'm running my payroll?
Okay, so we have the HMRC notifications in step 2, but you can run these as often as you wish. It doesn't have to be run once. It can be run at this stage, run your payroll and then run again. However, because you're connected to the HMRC, then there will be above this actions, there will be a memo to say that there is additional HMRC notifications available, and it will prompt you to download them. So I think there's a little yes or no, so you can click into the yes, it'll take you into this screen, or you can click into the HMRC notifications. So it's not a one-off, it can be run as many times as required.
Great stuff, thanks Linda. And also, how does it deal with holiday pay at average rate is one of the questions.
Okay, we do have, now this is a new feature, so it's still to be tested fully, but we do have an average pay report. It's basically going to look at the relevant employees. So you get the number of weeks, so you can set that to the 52 statutory weeks, legislative weeks. Excuse me, and you can filter by one employee, or you can filter by all employees. And you can see here, it's going to show me the weekly pay, the daily pay, and the total pay. So once you have a history, you will be able to, when you put the employees on advance, it will give you the options. Do you want to advance them using standard figures, such as just what they get paid normally, as in what's on the pay rate, or do you want to use the average pay? And it will pull through the average pay onto the advance and calculate it that way.
Good. Great then. And then maybe one for Doug, if he's there, a couple of questions. There's a couple of questions around integration, Doug, with other systems.
Yeah, sure.
So there's some specific systems there and about uploading timesheets. So maybe we could cover that off if that's okay. Thanks.
Yeah,
Doug.
sure. Timesheets. We have built a standard integration into our construction software for timesheets, but the gateway is there and we can adapt that to fit particular customer requirements, because everybody tends to have a slightly different flavour in terms of the information they're pulling off and where they're pulling it from. But yeah, that can be done as an individual customer configuration at the time of installation.
Great, and probably just one last question is if we have, how do employees access their pay slips every month, their P60s, is there a portal?
Yeah, sure. So as Linda said, the payroll can email the pay slips out to people on an ongoing basis. And one of the enhancements we're looking to do to the system for next year is to develop a portal based on a Teams user, which will allow the employee access to their history, payslips, P60s, and also give them the ability to maintain next of kin and address information.
Okay, super. And one last question. When you create a journal, can you create a job GL journal so that we can use for our job costing too?
Yeah, again, with the constructed information, that's the type of thing we do there. So yes, that would probably need a little bit of customization for the data being transferred, but yes, it's absolutely doable. Because one of the things that is inherent in the payroll is all the dimensions and coding are held against employees so that when you come to do integration journals, it can be done at a dimensional level.
Okay, great, Doug. Thank you. And that's all the questions that we have. I think we're just about on time anyway. So I hope everyone has found the session informative, and please do contact your KIC account manager if you do have any questions, further questions at all, or you would like any more information on the payroll, pricing, etc. And thank you very much indeed for joining this session. Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.